Hey, good evening, Insurance Roots. I am Rebecca Davis, the Medicare Wonder Woman, and we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Don't mind me, I'm at home and we're fixing to have a storm here. So my husband and my kiddo are running in and out of the house right now, gathering up all the animals. We have 4 chickens and a dog and a distressed cat because somebody ran it over in the middle of the road and we decided to save it a couple weeks ago. So they're gathering everything up out there before the storm hits. Today or tonight, not today, it is nighttime. We are going to be going into some ACA compliance, new compliance for this year that just dropped. And this all comes into effect tomorrow. Hey, guys. I cannot see who's commenting, but hey, Miss Felton, I see you, but everybody else I can't see. There should be instructions on how to let StreamYard know who's commenting if you would like to do that. So I actually know who I'm talking to. That'd be great. I'm going to go through this stuff pretty quickly tonight because I know for some of you it's later than others. Yes, 4 chickens. Seriously, they're actually about this big right now. We bought them when they were like 2 days old. We had some other ones that had eggs, and then the owls ate them last year, so we had to replace them. So we like fresh eggs. So yes, 4 chickens. Anyways, I was saying I'm going to go through this material pretty quickly. I know for some of you it's pretty late. For others of you, it's probably dinner time, depending on where you are in the country. If you're in your pajamas, give me a high 10 because I'm in mine. We were at a karate tournament all day and then jumped in the pool before the storm came in and then a quick shower and now in my jammies. So ACA compliance is starting tomorrow. The biggest one, or the one I think everybody's most concerned about, is the ACA scope that we've been hearing so much about. You know, if you do Medicare, you're used to a Medicare scope. So this really shouldn't scare you at all. But if you've never done Medicare and don't understand the scope of appointment, then this might scare you a little bit. But I'm here to assure you that it shouldn't. As long as you're doing good, compliant business, you should not have any problems with this scope. Because unlike Medicare, it's a little, let's say, up to interpretation. So with Medicare, it's very standard. It's the same scope for every carrier. You sign the same damn thing, whether it's in person, digital, text, whatever, it's the same damn thing. ACA is not quite the same. So ACA is leaving it up a little bit to interpretation. So there is a digital scope, sort of, that CMS has put out. Looks like this. This is their version. You can use it or you can make your own. I highly suggest you make your own, and we will talk tonight about what needs to be in it. We are actually going to make a hybrid version of it, and I'll get into that in a minute. So with the scope of appointment, it's not like a Medicare scope where you literally have to get the scope to even talk about product. That's not the idea behind this scope of appointment. This information is more to make sure that you are having an actual conversation with the client, whether it's over the phone, in person, via text, via email, Facebook Messenger. They don't really care how you're talking to the client. What they are caring about is that you are truly having a full conversation with the client and not just clicking a checkbox and pulling them in from the marketplace and changing the AOR. That's what they're trying to eliminate. That's what this process is going to eliminate, because what they want is an audit trail of your business that you did with that person. So they want to see an audit trail that you had permission to enroll them. You had permission to pull their information from the marketplace, that you can show that you did have a conversation with them, that you did get their legal name, that you did get their income amount that they stated, that you did get their ages, that you did get whether they're a smoker or not, that you did get their proper income, that you actually had this conversation and this information was given to you by the client, that you just didn't go fishing on the marketplace and find it yourself. Because quite frankly, I can get on pretty much 90% of y'all's Facebook posts because your birthday's on there, and I can pull your name and birthday and go fishing in the marketplace, see if I can find you. And if I can, I'll pull you over. And next thing you know, I change your income by $1 and now you're my client. But I never talked to you. That is actually feasibly possible. Whether you knew it or not, it was. And that is ultimately what they're trying to change. They want to know if they reach out to you about client X, Y, and Z, that you have an audit trail, that you had this conversation with the client, that you got permission from the client to do business with the client, and then you actually talked to the client and got their income, you got their doctors, you got their meds, all the things honestly you should be doing. And I bet all of you are. That's why I say this isn't something you should stress over, because this is absolutely just good business, but they want to know that you can prove it. And you have to be able to prove it for the next 10 years. So you do have to maintain this information for the next 10 years. So for us, all our calls are recorded automatically. We're in the Medicare business, right? They changed that rule on us last year. So every call we have is recorded regardless. My agents know on that recorded line that we ask for permission throughout the conversation out of habit for different things. Initially, we'll ask for permission to go looking for them in the marketplace because maybe they have a current product, or maybe they went on there 3 years ago and have an application. Because CMS actually would much rather you go in and fix and update a current application or an old application than create a new one. It's actually very frustrating and very hard on them when some person has 10 applications in 2023 because 10 different agents decided to write this person and switch the plan instead of just updating the current application. They made 10 new ones. And now when the government is trying to go figuring out which plan they're on or what plan you're talking about or what application you're talking about, there's 10 of them there and they don't have a clue. And they're updating the wrong one for you when you're on the phone. Seen it happen many, many times. So we first and foremost, if they have an existing application, we get permission to go look and we pull them in our system. And then we go through all the things with them, just like if we were quoting them brand new. If you're quoting them brand new, you're already asking them their name, their birthday, their income, because how else are you going to quote them if they're not in the system at all, right? But if they are in the system, you need to ask for permission to go look, and then you still need to run through the information with them. You can't just assume that what is sitting in the marketplace is correct, because either A, maybe it hasn't been updated in 2 or 3 years, B, maybe they had a crappy ass agent that took advantage of them and put in $13,500 because they knew they could get a $0 plan, even though they're making $60,000. That's a problem, y'all, because that person is going to get hit with a massive chargeback next year on their taxes. They're going to have to pay back that subsidy. So that is an absolutely huge problem. So don't be skirting income like that. Now I'm going to read some bullet points here so you know exactly what they're looking for. They are wanting a description of the scope. So a description of the purpose of the consent to provide the consumer of their authorized representative. So basically you got to explain to the client that what this is for. If you're having them sign something, no different than a regular Medicare scope, it's you just tell them, be like, this is for your protection in mind, that you state that you give us permission to work for you on your behalf with the marketplace. They want to know the date the consent is given. So make sure to date the damn thing, okay? Or on your calls or on your texts, make sure they are timestamped. The name the consumer of the authorized representative. So make sure you put yourself down. Or if you own an agency and you have service people, put the agency down so that way it kind of encompasses the whole agency. Name the agent, broker, web broker, or agency being granted consent. Again, a process through which the consumer or authorized representative may rescind the consent. So if you are going to go with a scope, if you're going to put something in writing, you need to let them know how they can rescind it. So do you want to give us permission for just today or for the whole year? Or and then you need to let them know if they change their mind, how they can resend it. I prefer in writing, whether it's via text, email, something in writing that actually says that. And then you got to maintain this stuff for 10 years. That's honestly the hardest part, right? So if you got paper ones, you got to have filing cabinets. Or if you're doing it digital, then you're taking up a lot of digital space, but you got to save it. Keep it in their file. We do a lot of text enrollments. Younger generation, they don't want to talk on the phone. They don't want to come in the office. They love text or email. And what I'm having my people do, and what we've done for a while actually, is we screenshot that entire text thread. We just save the whole thread and we'll put it in. We have what's called an S drive. We have a server where we store it all in, and it has a backup upon a backup. And then we also store it in their CRM, in our CRM under them. So it's more than backed up. I'm not worried about it. The same with the call recordings. Now, we've been doing this for a while. I mean, it's how we do business. We talk to our clients, we know our clients. So this is something we're not stressed over. What I am going to do with the scope, though, because I'm going to take the scope to a whole nother level, which I think is going to be Wayno. I'm going to do our own version of this scope and have all their compliant points in it. But inside of it, I'm going to have a few key pieces of information put on it, like their income, like how many people are in their household, simple things like that. And when they sign it, it's also a statement of fact of their income. And a lot of us have to go back and prove income. Well, W-2, tax records, things like that work. But you know what also works? A letter, when they state their income and sign it, will generally work. So instead of having to go fishing for all these tax documents, I'm going to try to put this in within the scope. And when they ask for the income documentation, I'm going to upload the scope. So I'm uploading their signature that gave us permission to do this. And I'm also going to be uploading on the scope what their stated income is to satisfy the income portion of the enrollment. I can put the file in the group. That's not a problem. It's just the CMS. It's the official CMS scope, but I can definitely load it in the group. That's not a problem. Of course, make sure it meets compliance. That's why I'm going to take their scope plus the bullet points off a Health Sherpa at the end that you're supposed to be reading to your clients before enrollment to let them know, if you don't file taxes, that's a problem. If you income changes, that's a problem. We're going to combine all of it. It's going to be 10 times more compliant than their own scope. And then I'm going to put in that other key piece to hopefully solve another issue that becomes problematic. When you're starting to deal with 10,000, 20,000 enrollments, you got 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 documents you got to generate, whether it's income, citizenship, not being in jail, things like that. If I can take one document off the table that we can get at time of enrollment, that will save us thousands of man hours and thousands of dollars that I put out in payroll every year to chase these people down for their documents. It will also save them from losing their health insurance in 3 months when they don't provide the document. I can, Sherry, for sure. So we're just trying to take the scope to an extra mile to eliminate some of the things. Will they maybe down the road not accept it? They might. But we already send in signed letters, especially on your self-employed people, because that's all they have. They may be brand new to business and they don't have tax records. So they write a letter stating that they believe their income is going to be XYZ for the year of 2023. And they accept it every time. So I don't see why there would be any reason why they don't accept this. So I think it would take an elimination. One, we're super compliant. We can go back on it a year later when the client says, I didn't tell you that was my income. I'm like, really? You stated it right here on the scope, and that's your signature. And the government accepted it as your income proof. So it will protect us down the road as much as it will protect the consumer. And hopefully will stop a lot of the AOR switching. Some other bullet points I'm going to read you, and I want to read you the bullet points directly because these are coming straight from CMS, and then we'll talk about them. Agents are required to obtain the document that eligibility application information has been reviewed by and confirmed to be accurate by the consumer prior to the application submission, which means you are verifying that everything is true and accurate to the best of their knowledge before you even go to enroll the client. The consumer consent for application accuracy requires a consumer or authorized representative to take action to produce a record, providing a signature or a recording of a verbal confirmation. That must include, at a minimum, the following information: the date the application information was reviewed, the name of the consumer or the authorized representative, an explanation of the attestations at the end of the eligibility application. Remember I saying that last part of Health Sherpa? Just grab that verbiage and put it on your scope. The name of the assisting agent, broker, or web broker, and then the agent, broker, or web broker must maintain the document for a minimum of 10 years. It is really not as hard as it sounds. Once you get your rhythm down, you're not going to have any problem with it. I promise. It's not that you have to have it to even talk to a client. So it's not like Medicare. I don't have to have them sign this to sit down and just have a conversation with them and, give them the basic information. But it's an audit trail is what it is an audit trail that if somebody were ever to say, well, I didn't request you as an agent, I didn't have this conversation with you, that you can prove it. And at the end of the day, it protects you more than it protects the consumer. Because I've had a few of those this year, and we've had to pull call recordings and send them over. And it's clear on the call recordings that we had a 30-minute conversation with these people. We know the name of their dog, their goldfish, their neighbor, what they are having for dinner. I mean, because we're very informal and very just natural conversationalists with our people. We try to make them friends, right? So there is more information on our call recordings, believe me, than CMS ever wants to listen to. So we're good. So now this extra form, I'm, like I say, going to try to create something that not only satisfies CMS, but helps us out and saves us time in the long run as well. And I think it'll be great. Now, any questions on the scope? I think this is slightly delayed, so I'll give you a second. Ultimately, it is just to make sure you can prove an audit trail that you had the full conversation with the client and they did give you permission to enroll. That's all it's about and nothing more. Now, I was on a call with CMS the other day. I'm part of one of their working groups now. And there's something new coming down the pipeline for next year. And it has to do with the automatic enrollments. So as y'all know, we have from November 1st to December 15th to enroll anybody for January 1st effective. And on 12:01 a.m. on December 16th, if they did not manually renew themselves, the government takes it upon themselves to auto renew. Anybody here have any problems with your auto renewals? Yeah, those are fun. Because let's face it, it doesn't matter how many times you called Miss Betty or how many times you text her. Miss Betty just didn't think it was important to call you back. And so she ends up getting auto renewed. Is there a number or connection to CMS services to speak to in regards to this kind of stuff in the future? I mean, if you did your certifications, you should be getting emails from CMS all the time to get on their live calls, and their calls are live. You can ask questions on there and you can talk to CMS direct. So anyways, back to this auto renewal. So yeah, so Miss Betty gets auto renewed come January 1, either on a plan she didn't pick because what she did have no longer exists, or she just gets auto renewed under her same plan, but the premium jumped up. It was a $0 plan, now it's costing her $200 and she doesn't know it. Well, that's problem one. That's already happening, right? So in January, a lot of us are cleaning up those messes because they finally got the deduction in their bank account and they're ticked, right? So they finally call us back. Or they went to their doctor and their insurance card no longer works because the plan got switched. But anyways, so generally when they auto renew currently, they just renew their current plan. So if they're on a Blue Cross, bronze, whatever, they're going to keep them on that bronze plan, and just whatever the new premium is without any changes. Or if they were on a Friday plan like last year that went under, then they move them to the next closest thing that they had, whether the doctors took it or not. Next year, they're in talks. This is just talk right now. So it's not set in stone yet. This is just talk. But next year, they're talking about on the auto renewals. If they're on a bronze plan and they ultimately can qualify for a silver for the same money or less, they are going to switch them. So a lot of you are going, well, why is that a big deal? That's probably better for the client, right? Silver plan's better than bronze for the same money? Yeah. But here's the thing, guys. As an agent of record, when they just automatically renew that bronze plane, the bronze plane, nothing changes, you're still the AOR. If they take a bronze plan to a silver plan, they just change the plan. Even if it's with the same carrier, they just change the plan. And most likely, probably almost guaranteed, you are now going to lose your AOR. So you will no longer be the agent of record on that plane. And you won't know it because you don't have their permission to go searching for it to find out. So until you can actually get a hold of that client, you're not going to know what fully happened, where they fully went, and if you can get them back as a client. So this coming year, if this passes, like I said, this is conversation right now. This coming year, if this actually goes through, it's always super important with ACA that you get a hold of your clients and renew them personally so they don't get surprises. But this coming year, it's going to be more important than ever just to maintain your AOR. So you could potentially lose a lot of business off an auto renewal this coming year if this goes through. Is it technically possibly better for the client? Yes, because they theoretically should be getting a better plan for the same or less money. But they could lose you as their agent. And then there's some people who choose a bronze plan intentionally. Maybe they can get the silver plan, but for some reason they chose that bronze plan. For whatever reason, that's what they wanted. And so those people that wanted it is now going to lose it. You'll have to go fishing and get them back and switch their plan back if they want to stay on that bronze plan. The other thing that could happen is if they qualify for a silver plan and the carrier they're on doesn't have one comparable, they could then even switch the carrier. Now, they're supposed to try to stay within the same network guidelines and stuff, but we all know how that is. These carriers change their network like most of us change our underwear. So today, the carrier network's the same, but come January 2nd, it's not. So that also is going to be problematic for your clients. Something else we encountered this year, just on a personal note, and if you guys have any clients like this, you might want to go double check them if you haven't. There was several clients that went on to group come January 1, but they wanted their insurance all the way till the end of the year. So we put in a cancellation date of January 1. or 12/31. Say we put it in November or December, we backdated it, or future dated it rather, to the very end of the year. So it would cancel and they would start their group. Well, when we did that, CMS couldn't see that stuff. So the plan we canceled, but since they didn't manually renew, they also got auto renewed. So our canceled plan got auto renewed. So we canceled it and they basically turned it back on. And we're running across clients that this has happened to, and now we're having to go back to healthcare.gov and fight for them to get a back date and show them that we canceled this and your system automatically enrolled them as a manual auto renew, even though we canceled the plan. And that's been very complicated to go back. And depending on which supervisor we get, some of these were winning and getting them backdated, and some of them were not. So if you have any clients that you canceled for the beginning of the year, I would go back in your systems and or just double check that they actually do show canceled. I agree, Victoria. I think it is absolutely risky to auto renew people without, these plans are technically a year-long plan, and then the plan changes. Even the same plan changes, right? Slight differences, deductibles, copays, price. I don't know why they just don't cancel. If you don't truly renew, then come December or January 1st, you don't have insurance, and you have until, February 15th to get it. That might make people answer their phones a little better too. Yes, into different plans if they think it's better. Now it's got to meet some criteria. It's got to be the same amount of money or less money than their bronze plan. And then it has to have a similar doctor network. No, I don't think this will apply to the state run marketplaces. And the reason for that is because all the state exchanges are all different on their own. We work in most of them. And every state has their own set of bylaws and their own enrollment portal and their own this is and their that's. And honestly, the state exchanges are a whole lot harder to get an AOR change anyways. So I don't think you're going to see that there, but this is very possible for the FFM states. I agree. If they don't renew, they should just be canceled. And then the client will have to come back and renew or call them and renew. But to do an official renewal, because a lot can change in a year: marriage, divorce, babies, income changes. You lose a job, you gain a job, you get a better job. Lots of things can happen in a year. Scope of appointments are for FFM states, guys. None of this information at this time applies to the state exchanges. Now, is the scope of appointment hard? No. Is it good business? Yes. It's not going to hurt you to do it because you never know what's going to come down the pipeline in the states either. I mean, Kansas, as of 3 days ago, just entered the state exchange market. They were an FFM state and now they're a state exchange. Georgia tried to go state exchange last year, is denied. They're trying again as we speak. It was very close to going to state exchange last year, so I could definitely see it becoming a state exchange this year. There's a lot of stuff going on in New York. Emily Trevino and I were talking about that the other night, about the New York Health Act that they're trying to pass. Now, they've been trying to pass this thing for umpteen years, but it's getting very, very close to possibly passing, and that would change healthcare as New York knows it entirely, including Medicare. There's a section in Health Sherpa that allows a client to revoke auto enrollment privilege by checking out. Wouldn't that stop the auto enrollment issue? You would think so, but I don't really think so. Exactly, was against recording calls, but love having it now in case clients say so. Oh, for sure. I had a client, true story. I had a client call. They said one thing. They're like, okay, they were dealing with one of our internal people. I was like, great. I will go back and pull the call record and listen it to me, and then I will fix it. The lady literally started cussing me out and then swearing on the Bible and anything else she can think of, that the things she was telling me now were the accurate things. And basically, regardless of what's in the call recording or the screenshots, because we had some of those too off of text, that we were liars. You know what? All this compliance stuff is meant to protect the consumer, but I truly believe if you're doing good business, like I know y'all are, it's going to protect you 10 times more than it's ever going to protect a consumer. And I honest to God believe that. So don't stress over the scope. It's just good business. You can use theirs. You can come up with one of your own. You can call, have your calls recorded. You can do text. Just copy the thread of the text so you have proof that you did have this conversation there. You do it through emails, all the things. I'm sure Georgia's will pass. Was on a waiver month ago with the state. Yeah, I think so too. I really do. They're pushing hard for it, which I'm very disappointed about, because Georgia is a really strong state for us. And I mean, we already do all the state exchanges, so we'll just do it. But ultimately, we all know that FFM states are easier when you can just do them all in one portal with Health Sherpa. And then as far as the auto enrollments for next year about switching, to a silver plan, that is still in conversation, but it is strong, serious conversation that is being had. So don't be surprised if you don't see that come out right before OEP. Any other questions on this? No? Was this helpful? You're welcome. At our agency with rollover with consent, the question I have is, how do you think this will affect retention of our clients? Again, unscrupulous is still, it's still going to happen, unfortunately, because some people will always live on the line of asking for forgiveness later. But it comes down to, keep the honest. So I think there's a lot of new agents out there that just don't understand the proper way. And I think those people want to do good business. And so those new agents, now that they ultimately have some guidelines to go by, I think you'll see them do better business and abide by them. But for the ones that are intentionally just doing it for the quick buck and, not really here for the long run, I hate to say it, but they're probably still going to do it until they get caught. And that's just the way it is. I mean, it literally says in one of the slides that a checkbox for consent is not considered consent. Just FYI, guys. So even if you have it like on your form where they just check a box, like a digital form, you still got to get them to sign it or something, because the check box isn't enough. So like if you do a form and you have like a box, I give consent, that's fine, check the box, but then under it, have them actually sign it, because just the checkbox on its own is not valid consent, according to CMS. With Georgia going to state exchanges, what changes will that have in regards to commissions and enrollment process? I don't think you're going to see anything different with the commissions. I mean, Ambetter is the strongest carrier in Georgia. They're pretty much across the board the same in all states, are very similar. Your biggest difference will be your enrollment process if they go to their own state exchange site. Now, there are 3 state exchanges that are actually on Health Sherpa. So even though they're state exchanges, you can still enroll them through Health Sherpa, because they have that already going for them. They already know the system. They may choose to keep doing it that way. And if they do, then you really won't hardly feel it. But if they choose to go to their own state exchange, it just depends on how serious to make the state exchange. I mean, some state exchanges are way harder than others. I mean, Pennsylvania, I think it's Pennsylvania or Kentucky or one of those, it takes like 20 hours to get through the training. And I don't mean like 20 hours you can get through it in two. I mean 20 hours because the slides are timed. You can't rush it. It's a nightmare. Colorado's the same way. They're just nightmare states. And then the California, you can breeze right through. So if they do go fully state exchange where they have their own portal and everything, then it's just going to be, how complicated they make it. Maryland, you have to have a code to get in. Kentucky, you have to do this push thing. Idaho, you have to do this other dual push thing. Washington, you have to have a code. I mean, it just depends on how complicated they get. California, you don't need anything. You just go and enroll. Kentucky's not near as bad as Pennsylvania and Maryland. Connecticut, you can't even get the approval to sell on the state exchanges until you have all the carrier contracts. That's different. Because a lot of these state exchange, well, even the FFSA, they don't care if you actually have the contract as long as you have the training in the state. You can enroll somebody and just not get paid for it. They don't care. Minnesota or no, Kentucky. Sorry guys, it's late. My state's Connecticut. Connecticut, you have to actually have all the carrier contracts in force before they'll let you on Connecticut to even do the state exchange training. So you initially sign up that you want to do it. Then they say, great, submit your carrier contracts to us, and then we'll give you portal access to do your training. So they all can be a little bit different. That's the one thing about the state exchanges. They're not universal. No two are alike. And that's what makes them so difficult. I mean, Idaho has several carriers that unless you live in the state, you can't get. Same with Minnesota. So it's just, those are the things that become very problematic. And it's what ultimately makes the state exchanges hard. Because, I mean, insurance is insurance. Once you know how to really read one policy, you know how to read them all. So it's not that it's the policies are different in the state, but it's the actual dealing with the state, their compliance, their rules and regulations for that state. Now, funny enough, Idaho, even though a lot of the carriers you have to live in the state to get, Idaho, the state itself, offers you marketing money. It's like they'll like co-op marketing money dollars with you to actually sell on their state. So that's interesting. But it's really hard to get the contracts. So they're all just very different. So I don't know. Georgia actually is one of the harder states to actually get your agency just license in. When we got ours, it took us this has been several years ago, but it took us 3 months to get it. I don't know if they're any faster or not now, but I know back then it was kind of a nightmare. We had to submit all this extra stuff, and it took forever to finally get. Not so much the individual agent, but the agency license was problematic. It was similar to California. Not quite as bad as California, but very similar. All right, guys. Well, it is almost 9:40, 10:40 if you're on the East Coast. So I will let you all go unless you have some questions. If you come up with a question after the fact, just post it in the group and I will see it and answer it. And there are many, many other people in these groups that are very versed, very knowledgeable, amazing agents. And I know they will answer as well as they see it too. Washington is notoriously difficult overall, yet they just did away with pre-licensing training requirement. Yep. Telling you, I'm pretty sure it was Penny in Colorado to date has been the absolute worst to get. And I think we're in 12 of the 18 state exchanges at this point. My goal is to have all state exchanges that are feasibly able to get by open enrollment this year. That is our agency goal. So we are combing the states right now, and getting the contracting has been so hard. IP address, yeah. And see, that's part of that whole, and I wasn't going to get into that tonight because I really just wanted to focus on the scope, but the whole selling out of the country, I mean, they're serious about that. It's the IP address that they're going to track, and they're basically going to be locked out of the portals to be able to sell from, as I understand how it's going to work. Oh, another thing they're inquiring about with agents, I'm not sure where they're going with this. I can only imagine, but they're asking a lot of questions about how we're utilizing AI, all the new like Chat GPT and stuff in our business. Like if we're using it for marketing or if we're trying to figure out how to use it for customer service, things like that. They are monitoring the usage of that very cautiously and heavily right now too. So that'll be interesting to see if in the future they come out with any rules regarding AI and Chat GPT. For sure. I got one agent that the whole selling out of the country just really throws a huge monkey wrench in her 3-year plan. And I feel so bad for her because when she told me about her 3-year plan, I was so excited for her, and I wanted to do everything in my power to help make this possible for her because it's just the coolest plan. And with the whole now uh, throwing in this not being able to sell out of the country is throwing a monkey wrench in it. I'm wondering if it's possible to basically go to CMS with like a business uh, like profile, or what am I thinking of? I can't think, it's late. I can't think of the name right now, but ultimately, you go to CMS with your business blueprint and this is what you want to do. If and you're like a legit agent, you're US, but you're, doing X, Y, and Z in the country for, X amount of time, um, that maybe you could get like a special approval or something. I mean, I don't know if that would be possible or not, but I think for anybody that really wants to work out of the country or live out of the country and sell insurance, I think it would be at least worth a shot, right? Because you never know. I mean, worst they can say is no, but maybe you can create a good enough business plan, model, security, back end security, things like that, that you might be able to get a special approval and then ultimately maybe make a almost like an appeal process for anybody else that wants to do something like that too. Because I don't really know how they can. I mean, besides blocking the addresses like on the computers, I don't know legally how they can stop you from doing your job, regardless of where you are. I mean, I know it's the government; they can do anything they want to, but I mean, it just seems crazy to me. I mean, as long as you're trained, you do the trainings, your system's secure, especially if you are an American, just living abroad. You would think there would be something somebody could do, somebody to get to some sort of special permission. Maybe they give them a special IP address. They can only use this one, something like that. I don't know. I have an IP screen every time. Yeah. So my husband is super techie. When I told him this, he's like, "Well, that's when you do like a VPN over to Switzerland, where Switzerland it's against the law for them to share your information, and then you remote into your own PC in the states, that's sitting in some office in the states that just stays turned on, and then it'll look like you're in, let's say, the state of Texas, but you're remoting in through a VPN through Switzerland that's non-traceable into your computer." I mean, my husband has all kinds of wonky ass workarounds, and I don't know if that would work or not until they, I guess, totally turn that on or turn it off, or we can't access it overseas until somebody's overseas trying to do this. We're never going to know. But I mean, I guess theoretically that's possible. But the question is, if it's just because it's possible, what kind of ramifications can there be for it if they ever did figure it out, right? I mean, that could be ultimately losing your license if they really wanted to stand behind that. So I don't know. But like I said, he's super IT. He says he can figure out a workaround. I've seen people in that one chat on my page where they think they can work around it too. But we all don't really know how that's going to play until they update those systems to where you can't get into them and until somebody's overseas to actually test drive it, right? So who really knows? I'm not techie enough to know personally, but I say let's create an appeal and a business plan and let's get special permission. Worst they say is no. All right, now I'm rambling. It sounds to me that CMS is mostly targeting people who are enrolling people without consent, and these agents aim at you for virtual. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly what they're doing. And there needs to be some sort of regulation, right? I mean, the ACA has been wild, wild west, especially since COVID. Pre-COVID, it could have been, but it wasn't. Once COVID happened and then they started having this low income SEP and Medicaid just kept going on forever. And then if they did lose Medicaid, but you didn't have to prove it to get an SEP, that's when all this shit started coming down. I told them the other day if they just went back to pre-COVID rules, where you actually had to show proof of the SEP when you submit it, half this stuff would go away just with that. They just kind of laughed at me. But 2 years ago, this wasn't a problem. 3 years ago, the AOR switches and the enrolling people without them knowing it wasn't really a problem. This has just happened since all the COVID regulations or rather, since COVID, all the regulations got lifted and it turned into the wild, wild west. So they're just trying to get some sort of control back on it. We are working on our version of the scope. Once I have it done, anybody that wants it, I'll share it with you. And then I will put the official CMS one in our portal as well. So you guys can see that. You can just pull the files and find it. Y'all have a great night. Thanks for staying with me. I know it's late. I appreciate y'all. I hope this helped. If you have any further questions, reach out. I'm always around. Thanks, you guys. Have a good night.